Welcome to podcast Live the Battlefield. And in this podcast today episode, we're going to talk about espionage. But before we dig deep into this particular topic, and this topic today is how the Harvard educated scientists from New York become the spy. I'd like to share with you two things. Number one, I spend tremendous amount of time in world of espionage and the world of human intelligence. And let me tell you, the world of espionage is for the young men, for the young guns. People are being drawn to that occupation for many, many reasons. But there's a difference between being the intelligence operative and being the spy. Usually the people call the spies those people who are stealing the secrets, who's selling the secrets, and the list goes on. In a nutshell, they're informants, and they become informants for the foreign intelligence agency, and in some cases even the domestic intelligence agency. For example, you can have the people who live in this country, and they work for the domestic intelligence agency, so providing those informations to domestic intelligence agency, no police. Now, this Harvard-educated scientist from New York, he became the spy. And there's several reasons why somebody became the spy or informant. And today you're going to learn something very unique, that nobody is immune to become the spy. The most trustworthy and most cheapest spies and most motivated spies for any foreign intelligence agencies are those who believe in this patriotic duty. And the Russians created that nostalgic, romantic environment that everything in Russia was beautiful. We're talking about SSSR, Союз Советских Социалистических Республик, ex-USSR. Today it's Russia. And many people start spying for the Russians for free. Yeah, Russians give them money. But they spy for the free because they believe it in the cause patriotism ideology. And today, these Harvard-educated scientists from New York become the spy. Why? This is a true account of American spy who revealed the secrets about the atomic bomb to the Soviets, and guess what? Got away with it. If you're following history, you should see how many people from the West work for the Russians. They work for the Russians. You don't see vice versa. The West use it to make it publicly who escaped from Russia. I become dissident, and so like I was working for KGB. I was working. No, it doesn't work that way. Russians were more successful in obtaining information from the West than West from the Russians. This spy who got away for sharing secrets of atomic bomb, it's called Theodore Hall. It is the youngest scientist to work on the legendary Manhattan Project, which built the atomic weapon. The Soviet Union officially became the second nuclear power they became on August 29, 1949, with the detonation of the RDS-1 plutonium bomb. According to the US Secret Service papers, CIA agents assumed that the Soviets would not be able to develop nuclear bomb before 1953. And don't forget, the Americans dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan in 1945. 1945, end of the war. And suddenly Russians, 4 years later, they have atomic bomb. CIA told, obviously, their president that Truman at that time, and then later on to the Eisenhower, Russians will not have the bomb before 1953. However, 1949, boom! Theodore Hall is an American scientist, aided Moscow's success by providing information to the Soviets in a covert manner. The RDS-1 atomic bomb was designed to look like the Fat Man, the American plutonium bomb that exploded over Nagasaki, as I mentioned, August 9, 1945. The Soviets received extensive information about the bomb design from the heart of the Manhattan Project. The code name for the United States atomic weapons development in a partnership with the United Kingdom and the Canada. The value of confidentiality cannot be emphasized. Only few people in the entire country were likely aware of the Manhattan Project. One of them was Theodore Hall. Theodore Hall, the son of a housewife and a shopkeeper, was born October 1925 and grew up during the Great Depression. It was a very tough time for ordinary Americans and Europeans as well, but Americans has been hit strongly. Hall was a mathematician and scientist. When he was 16, he was accepted to Harvard, where he graduated in 1944. His remarkable academic record caught the attention of the American officials, looking for people to work on the fledgling nuclear program. Hall was interviewed for the job as a top-secret Los Alamos laboratory in 1943. What U.S. officials were unaware of was that the young physicist had already been recruited. Why? Hall was a member of Harvard's Marxist student organization. History repeating itself. I grew up in socialism and communism, and I was always surprised why the people from the West love this type of society. But the most vulnerable group of the people, they are those who are on university. That group of the people is becoming exposed to those Marxist and socialist and Leninism and, just to name a few. Theory and practice of the socialism. That was called one of the subjects I had in school. Hall became the member, and he is not only one. Happened in UK before the Second World War, during Second World War. Savile Sachs, the son of Russian immigrant and a few communist, was also born and raised in New York, was his roommate. Sachs worked for the Soviets as a courier, delivering nuclear secrets to Theodore Hall. Sachs and Hall provided the Soviets the first information from Los Alamos, the most recent knowledge on the building of the plutonium weapon in December 1944. During 1944, he was concerned about danger of American monopoly of weapons in the event of the post-war depression. That's what Theodore Hall wrote in a letter published in the New York Times 2 years before his death from kidney disease in 1997. According to Hall, the development of nuclear weapons by the Soviet Union would level the playing field and function as a deterrent to the weapons deployment. At the time, the Soviet Union was not an enemy, but rather an American ally, Hall explained. The Soviet people fought heroically against the Nazis, and they paid a high human cost and very likely to save the Western allies from defeat. Mlad was Theodore's codename, which came from a Slavic word that means young. Hall continued to offer concrete technological knowledge to Moscow, particularly regarding progress on revolutionary way of detonating plutonium warheads. Guy was ahead of his time, giving the Soviets the way of detonating plutonium warheads. Despite the fact that the US and the Soviet Union fought the same enemies in the Second World War, Moscow and Washington continued to spy on each other. Venona, America's massive counterintelligence campaign against the Soviets began in February 1943. A transmission from the Soviet Ministry of Internal Affairs, then known NKVD, was decrypted by the codebreakers in December 1946, 3 years later. They intercepted communication that showed the presence of Soviet spy within the Manhattan Project. When the FBI knocked on Theodore Hall's door in 1950, he was working on his doctorate at the University of Chicago. Using decrypted messages against Hall, agents were able to identify him as a Moscow collaborator. Klaus Fuchs, a German physicist, has been arrested the previous year as a Los Alamos Mall. Fuchs admitted to giving the enemy nuclear information. The FBI, however, was unable to coerce Theodore Hall or Savile Sachs into admitting. There were Moscow cables that could have been used as evidence in a court, but the US authorities refused to utilize them, since doing so would have disclosed publicly that they had succeeded in decoding Soviet signals. Now, this is very interesting. Sometimes you need to swallow your pride and you need to let your pride go away, because by doing so, you're going to protect larger picture. So the Americans, they were decoding the Soviet messages, but if they expose the whole, most probably Russians will change the way how they deliver messages, the way how the ciphering messages, and list goes on. In the end, unlike any others who were imprisoned or even executed on espionage charge, Hall escaped. Now, there was a big witch hunt in the US after the Second World War, and everybody was being charged or executed. Hall escaped. However, Hall and his wife were anxious about their safety. He left an academic job in Chicago for questionable research position at a hospital in New York. He was then offered a job at Cambridge, and he and his wife moved to the United Kingdom in 1962. In 1984, Hall quit the company. He planned to live the rest of his life quietly and unseen. However, the past caught up with him in 1996. The telegrams revealing his interactions with the Russians were declassified and made public. Also known witnesses to Hall espionage had deceased by that point. Surprise, surprise. It's even been claimed that I changed the course of history, Hall told the New York Times reporters. Perhaps the course of history, if not altered, would have led to a nuclear war in the last 50 years. For example, the bomb could have been dropped on China in 1949 or the early 1950s. Well, if I helped them to prevent that, then I accept the charge, Hall said. In the 74 years since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there have been no other nuclear attacks, and Theodore Hall went to his grave knowing he had a hand in them. I sincerely hope that this is not the case in the future. Please let me know, what do you think? What is Hall's true motivation to give Russians secrets about atomic bomb? Thank you for watching Live the Battlefield. Feel free to subscribe, share, like and comment, and leave in comment section below what do you think about Hall. Thank you.